do what it says I can do. Today I will be taught the word of God. I boldly confess. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. I will never be the same. I'm about to receive the incorruptible, indestructible, ever-living seed of the Word of God. I will never be the same. Never, never, never. I will never be the same. In Jesus' name. And the people said, Amen. Hallelujah. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Today I'll be talking to you from 2 Kings chapter 4 and 1 Kings chapter 17. First we'll go to 2 Kings chapter 4. And we'll just be speaking or teaching one or the other. To sow a seed to meet your need. Sow a seed to meet your need. 2 Kings chapter 4. Verse 1. Let us read it in unison. You can remain seated while you're reading it. Beginning at verse number 1, let us begin now. Now, they cried, O Lord, son of the prophet, certain my husband is dead. Now let the servant give fear, Lord. And the creditors come to take him. And I said to her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, thy handmaid hath not anything in the house, save the oil. Then he said, go walk around with all thy neighbors, even empty vessels are not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and on thy son, and thou shalt pour out all the vessels. Aside that which was full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her son, who brought out vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, there is not a vessel more. And the oil was wasted. That's it. It's not there in the oil. What can I do to help you? He says. Elisha, tell me what you have in the house. Nothing at all, except a flask of olive oil. She replied, that's in the NLT version. So the woman in this story is in a desperate need.
in the midst of grieving the loss of her husband who has just died, she is confronted by a creditor who is now threatening to take her 2 sons away from her as well and turn them into slaves as payment for a debt that she cannot pay. Now her husband has been a God-fearing man and a member of Elijah's company of the prophets. And so she comes crying to Elisha for help. But I want you to note that Elisha's response to her, he begins by asking her to take stock of what she has rather than bemoan what she doesn't have. Tell me, what do you have in the house? He said. So there's a very important principle of faith that Elisha is tapping into here. And we see it at work throughout both the Old and the New Testament. The principle is this: before God meets a need, He always requires someone to sow a seed. Desperate needs are seed beds for miracles, and Elisha knows that the place this woman must begin is by looking for a seed that she can sow. She admits that she has a flask of oil, but her estimation, it is nothing at all. That's what she says, nothing at all. But to Elisha, and most importantly to God, it is that request seed, no matter how small, that can be used to prime the pump for her miracle. Prime the pump for her miracle. Sowing a seed in faith is like priming an old hand water pump. A little bit of water is needed to pour into the pump to create the suction necessary to begin drawing out an endless stream of water. In God's hands, a little bit can produce a lot. I don't know if anyone in here has any experience with priming pumps. When I was a child, I had experience. You just didn't go out there and start pumping. You had to get a little bit of water to start that pump. And after a while, the water comes gushing out. Praise the name of the Lord. So, as we indicated, desperate needs are seed beds for miracles. And Elisha knows that the place this woman must begin is by looking for a seed that she can sow. Elisha instructs her and her sons to go to all her neighbors and gather as many empty containers as they can. Then she's told to begin by pouring oil from that little flask into the container. One by one, her sons set a filled container aside and slip another empty one in as the oil continues to flow. Miraculously, the oil does not stop until every single container is full. Then Elisha tells her, go sell the oil pay your debt, and you and your sons can live on what is left. So now we are no different than this woman when we're facing an insurmountable need in our lives. We feel like whatever we may have is nothing in comparison to that great big something that we need. But God would ask us, just like Elisha, he would ask us, ask the widow, what do you have in your possession that you can sow? What do you have in your possession that you can sow? Now, although God created the heavens and the earth out of nothing, everything else he has chosen to do since then is by starting and creating something from seed form. He formed Adam from the dust of the ground and Eve from Adam's rib. And when Moses was complaining that he didn't have what it takes to be a leader, God asked him, what is that in your hand? And that staff in the hands of Moses proved to be all the leadership seed he needed to confront Pharaoh, lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, and part of the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea. So the first miracle that Jesus performed was at a wedding feast of Cana of Galilee. And when he was informed by his mother that they were out of wine, the first thing Jesus did was to look around the room for some seed to sow. He spotted 6 stone water jars, had them filled with water, and instantly turned them into the equivalent of 750 bottles of the finest wine on this side of Napa Valley. And later in his ministry, Jesus put the same seed sowing principle into practice by feeding groups of 3,000 to 5,000 people simply by taking the few loaves and fish available and multiplied them as they were given away. A seed is very simply anything that we possess that is a resource that God can use.
Amen.
Anything that we can use to help someone. As we have seen, it can be a jar of oil, jars of water, or simply bread and fish. The main thing is to take that seed and make it available to Jesus.
Amen.
Praise his name. Take that seed and make it available to Jesus. And as with any seed, it is the act of sowing it by faith that releases God's multiplication power.
Amen.
A story is told of an old man who once shared a dream that he had. And in the dream, he saw 2 men who wanted to have a tree in their yard. So one man went to the spot where he wanted a tree. He wanted the tree. And he dug a hole. And he began to pray that God would fill it with a tree. Then the other man went to the spot in his yard where he wanted a tree. He dug a hole and he planted a seed. And he began to pray that God would give him a tree. And when the man woke up from his dream, the Lord asked him, which man has the most faith? He pondered the question for some time, and then he answered, I'm not sure of which one. The Lord replied, the man who planted the seed. Many times we want God to work on our behalf and answer our prayers, but fail to realize that we are not giving him any seed of faith to work with. And all the time, he may be asking us, tell me, what do you have in the house? Or we may feel that in order for us to get out of debt, we have to go on a fast. We have to pray, or we have to take a sabbatical and get closer to the Lord. God will answer our prayer. But we have to plant a seed in order to get out of debt.
Amen.
Praise the name of the Lord.
Amen.
Now, in 1 Kings 17, 8-24, sow a seed to meet your need. And may I add to that, don't eat your seed. There's a whole lot of folks sitting up in front of Burger King eating their seed. Taking a large bag of potato chips, eating up your seed. First Kings 17, verses 8 and 9 says, and the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, arise and get thee to Zarephath. This is another example, another story of seed sowing. Arise and get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. And behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. Zarephath means smelting shop, a workshop for refining and smelting of metals. And it would be here that Zarephath, that the faith of Elijah the widow and of her son would undergo some fiery trials in God's refinement of their faith. This would be a trial of Elijah's faith because he was being sent to dwell in a place belonging to the Sidonians, among whom Jezebel was known as a princess. The king of Zidon was Jezebel's father. And Jezebel was angry with Elijah, and she wanted him dead. She had made a fool out of her on Mount Carmel when her priest failed to defeat the God of Israel.
Yes.
And now she was out to get her.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a man on the run. I'm sure that Elijah wondered whether many of Jezebel's friends would attempt to get even with him. There was another trial of Elijah's faith also, because God had sent him to live with a poor widow woman, with a famine and a drought-parched land, and this poor widow was going to be his support. That was bad enough. But she was a Gentile, and that posed even more problems.
Amen.
Now, if it was up to me, that had received the commandment of the Lord, I don't know if I would have taken it as easily as Elijah did. I would have asked the Lord, if you're going to send me to someone who is supposed to give me a place to live, food to eat, and provide for me, why don't you send me to someone of means? But Elijah's faith was already strong, and he didn't really question God, but after all, God had sent food to him every day that was delivered by the ravens. A raven was considered an unclean bird according to the law. So God had been preparing Elijah for some time when he would be sustained by a Gentile widow, and Elijah was willing to obey God because there was some greater purpose. There was some greater purpose. Now 1 Kings 17 verses 10 and 12 says, so he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, the widow woman was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. And as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. And she said, as the Lord thy God liveth, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go and dress it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. I think that a trial of faith was also directed at the widow. I have to admire her grit. Tradition says that this widow of Zarephath was only around 20 years old. She had a young son that she dedicated her life to. She lived a very meager existence, struggling day by day, not just to make ends meet, but just to survive. Every morning, she would walk about gathering sticks for the fire. For 3.5 years, there had been no rain. The ground was hard and cracked, and there was no harvest in the field where she could have gleaned from what was left by the harvesters. So I wonder how many nights that she went to bed crying out in her heart, where will I find the food for us to survive another day? Somehow she had managed to scrape together just enough cooking oil and just enough flour to bake one last cake. Maybe I'll call them pancakes. And it probably wasn't even going to be enough to fill the hunger of her son. And yet they must both somehow survive on it for a while. They were already weak from hunger and tired of the struggle. And one more cake, one more fire, one more meal, and then there would be nothing left. There was no supermarket, no corner grocery store. There was no neighbor to borrow from. Nothing. Nothing but another day to suffer, and soon it would be over. They couldn't last long in their weakened condition. Then along comes this prophet of Israel. She had some knowledge of who he was, but not much. And it seems as though God had been preparing her for Elijah's arrival. Maybe it was in a dream or a vision, or maybe it was just in a still small voice that whispered in her heart that somehow she would make it through. Or maybe it was just the fact that she had grown too tired and too weak. or too hopeless to say no. 1 Kings 17:13, it says, and Elijah said unto her, fear not, go do as thou hast said, but make me thereof a little cake first, and bring it unto me, and afterwards make for thee and for thy son. Now, doesn't that sound like some preacher? Maybe some preacher you know. They expect everyone to give everything to them. Sometimes preachers can get pushy when they want a free ride or a discount in the local store. After all, I'm a clergy. I know some preachers, when they get ready to go shopping, they put on their collar just to go shopping. Put on their collar just to impress. But Elijah wasn't asking from a selfish spirit. He had been journeying for some time, and I'm sure that he was hungry. But the real reason for his request was to try the faith of this woman.
Yes.
Was this the widow woman that God intended? Would she be willing to obey the Lord, even when it meant possibly having to do without what she needed? Elijah knew that there was enough for all three, but he didn't hesitate to ask for the first cake. He knew that God was going to provide. God wants He wants your first fruits, not your leftovers.
All right.
Elijah could have let the widow woman and her son eat first, but then what would that have left to provide for the ministry that had come to her? There are too many people today who would have told Elijah no. The attitude today is, it's mine. It's mine, it's mine, and I won't give it away. Most people, even Christians, are more concerned with getting the things that they want than they are about giving to God and what God says that they need to give to His work. A lot of Christians only give God their leftover time. Leftover time. And while I'm talking, I want to thank all of the brothers that worked yesterday and cleaned the area where we're going to begin phase 2. It is gutted out. It is gutted out and clean, spotless. I came down to greet you, but you had already left. I think we just missed each other in minutes apart. At least that's what Sister Divorce told me. But that part of your life that belongs to God must be given first to become the seed from which your faith and provision will grow. The problem with most of us is that we eat our seed before God can use it to grow into a blessing. 1 Kings 17:14-15, for thus saith the Lord God of Israel, the barrel of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day that the Lord sendeth rain upon the earth. And she went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and she and he and her house did eat many days. Because she was willing to obey God and give the first fruit of her labor to God's man, she, Elijah, and her son were able to survive a long drought and famine. God provided all they needed, the oil would refill and the grain would multiply after every meal. God's power to provide for our need is not limited by what we see. Can I get a witness?
Yes.
Only by what we can believe for and by the obedience and the faith that we put in Him. There's a story that I read once that kind of illustrates what I'm saying. The following letter was found in a baking powder can wired to the handle of an old pump that suffered the only hope of drinking water on a very long and seldom used trail across Nevada's desert. This pump is all right as of June 1932. So I put a new sucker washer into it, and it ought to last 5 years. But the washer dries out, and the pump has to be primed. Under the white rock, I buried a little bottle of water out of the sun, and the cork end up, and there's enough water in it to prime the pump, but not if you drink some first. So pour about 1/4 of the water into the pump and let it soak to wet the leather washer, and then pour in the rest of the water, but not too fast, and pump like crazy, and you'll get water. The well was never run dry, so have faith. And when you get all the water you need, fill the bottle and put it back like you found it for the next travel. Desert Pete. P.S. Don't drink the water first. Prime the pump with it, and you'll get all you can hold. If you drink it first, you will not live to see the next water hole. What would have happened if the widow had disobeyed the prophet's command? She would have died. Never having experienced the great miracle working power of God. God opened the windows of heaven, and Jehovah Jireh was there to be near and to be her provider. 1 Kings 17:16 says, and the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by Elijah. 1 Kings 17 and 18, and it came to pass after these things that the son of the woman and the mistress of the house fell sick, and her sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. And she said to Elijah, what have I to do to thee, O thou man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? Now isn't that just like life? She had received a miracle. God has so graciously provided for them all. It was a blessed time to have the man of God under her roof all this time. She had been given new hope, a new lease on life, and a vision of a brighter future for herself and her son. How many of you know that after a great blessing and deliverance from a fiery trial, there's another trial coming?
Oh, yeah.
Can I get a witness? There's another trial coming. And I'm sure that she thought within her heart, why did God preserve my life and the life of my son only to see him die now after the famine has passed? Elijah, it would have been just as well if I had never seen your face or had any conversation with you about the God of Israel. Everything you said was for nothing. Look what God has brought upon me. With my son gone, my purpose in life gone, and without my son, there'd be no one to care for me when I'm too old and sick to take care of myself. Just like the widowed woman who in her passion and agony began extremely affected with the death of her child, we are so quick to forget and or overlook all the benefits we have received from the Lord. Why me, Lord? What did I do to deserve this? Where has your blessing gone? Have you left me alone to die in this place? Her faith had been placed in God. She had obeyed the prophet of God. She had done everything in her power to see to it that God's will was done. And this was the thanks she received. It's not fair, prophet. It's not fair, God. Have you come only to tease me and then bring punishment upon me for some great sin? We must never forget that when the circumstances of life seem impossible, that's when the real miracle is about to happen. Can I get a witness? And in this story of Elijah and the widow of Zarephath, we see a series of lessons for each one of us. God promises us blessings if we will give him our seed of faith and our first fruit and our trust. Sometimes blessing comes when it dries up. That's when God really tests our faithfulness. Will we trust him anyway? Will we trust him anyway, even though it seems to have failed us? The widow's son was raised again, but not because the widow had faith. She failed this test of faith, but God was merciful and gracious, and he still proved that he was all sufficient for her need. Have you ever been just absolutely bowled over, and when the blessing dried up? Sometimes we are sitting on top of the world and the windows of heaven have opened up so that our lives are filled with blessings. Then all of a sudden the blessing seems to have stopped and we're left in spiritual shock wondering what happened. There's a little story to illustrate this point. Chippy, the parakeet, never saw it coming. One second he was peacefully perched in his cage, and next he was sucked in, washed up, and blown over. The problem began when Chippy's owner decided to clean Chippy's cage with a vacuum cleaner. She removed the attachments from the end of the hose and stuck it in the cage. The phone rang and she turned to pick it up. She barely said hello when Chippy got sucked in. The bird owner gasped, put down the phone and turned off the vacuum and opened up the bag, and there was Chippy, still alive but stunned. Since the bird was all covered with dust and soot, she grabbed him and raced to the bathroom and turned on the faucet and held Chippy under the running water. Then realizing that Chippy was soaked and shivering, she did what any compassionate bird owner would do. She reached for her hair dryer and blasted the pet with hot air. Poor Chippy never knew what hit him. A few days after this trauma, the reporter who initially written about the event contacted Chippy's owner to see how the bird was recovering. Well, she replied, Chippy doesn't sing much anymore. He just sits and stares. So it's hard to see why sucked in. It's not hard, that is, to see why sucked in, washed up, and blown over. That's enough to steal the song from the stoutest heart. 1 Kings 17, verses 19, 24. And he said unto her, give me thy son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him into the loft where he abode and laid him upon his own bed. And he cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourned by slaying her son? And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, see, thy son liveth. And the woman said, Elijah, now by this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in thy mouth, that the word of the Lord in thy mouth is true. And in the end, God brought them through. He gave them all they needed for this time. Then he showed them that he was not just going to provide the needs of this life, but he was the God of eternal life as well. Isn't it so wonderful to know that God is faithful, and he will never suffer you to fail or fall. God will bring you through. Oh yes, he will. He will provide for you. Touch your neighbor and tell your neighbor, God will provide for you. Tell your other neighbor, God will provide for you. He will protect. He will give you all that he has promised through the Lord Jesus Christ. So don't lose faith. Don't give up. God will deliver you too. Somebody shout hallelujah. Sow a seed to meet your need. Somebody said, well, when it comes time for seed sowing, I got these bills. I would sow, but I don't have anything to sow. I got these bills, but I just got enough money to pay the bill, and I don't have enough to pay all the bills. Well, you don't have enough to pay all the bills? Then take it and sow it. And then you'll have enough to pay the bills. Because when harvest time comes, God will make a way out of no way. And he will give you a miracle. Somebody shout hallelujah. But if you ever find these people that they're always counting their money, and you can tell by the way a person counts their money whether they're stingy or not. They be counting their money all the time. And you need to turn that seed over to God and plant. Let him give you a harvest. Praise his name. You know, I am a living witness that God will give you a harvest. And God will give you a miracle. Amen. Like I said, there's all kinds of seeds. But if you need a financial seed, or if you need a financial harvest, you plant a financial seed. Amen. I remember years ago when I was a young man, single, full of fire. Not foxfire either. But I had this old pickup truck. And I love the people of God. I love the men of God. I love those that carry the word, evangelists and so forth and so on. And I would take this old pickup truck that I had, and my father worked at a prefab home building where they built new homes called Well Built. And they were the first prefab homes that were built. My father delivered the trim to the homes after the homes were erected and everything was put in. Then my father would deliver the trim to the house, the insulation, the sheetrock, the flooring, and that was his job. And he would have deliveries every day all over the tri-state area. And so I used to I liked to ride with my father, and he'd like to take me along with him. He never talked, he just drove. Never had that kind of relationship where he talked to me. He just drove, and then when we got to the place where we delivered the trim, he would work me like a slave. Here I was, 13 years old, and he backed that truck up to this new prefab home, and because of the trench that was around, there was a trench around it because the foundation was built, and it wasn't filled in yet, it wasn't yet complete. So in order to get it off the truck, you had to take a plank and put the plank from the truck to the house, the door of the house, and carry the sheetrock in. And it wasn't not just the short pieces of sheetrock, the regular pieces, but it was there's this long pieces. And he would be on one end of the sheetrock, and here I was, little 12, 13-year-old boy, struggling on the other end. And when we got to the plank, my feet had to be short. Otherwise, I would be looking like that parakeet. Just staring from down in the trench. And so, he worked at this prefab home place, and back at the warehouse where they supplied all these things, they would have pieces of wood cut from making the frames. There was these little pieces of wood that they threw away, piles of it. I mean, big, huge piles of it. And some people knew about it, and they would take it. They would have stoves that they burned the wood. And so I had this pickup, and I would back up, and I'd fill my pickup with these pieces of wood. And I'd take it over to this mother, evangelist mother, very old. She lived back in the woods, like, she didn't even know I was coming. I would knock on her door, and she answered. She says, "Oh, Brother Rudolph, good to see you. Well, how are you? Fine. What you doing here?" I said, "Mother, I bought you a truckload of wood." She would say, "Oh my God, the Lord bless you. The Lord bless you. We need you." Oh, she said, the black sheep. I'm telling you, she just starts speaking in tongues, and my God, but I would do it sporadically from time to time, make sure that she had wood. And then I remember I met her at this place called Great Eastern Mills. It was a place like Target's, and down in New Jersey, a big, huge store like Target's. And I went there one Saturday. It wasn't a Saturday, because the Saturday was a Sabbath, but I was there on a Friday or something, and I had to get some shirts and a couple pairs of socks, and I was in there, and it was crowded with people, and I walked around to the area to pick up the socks and ran dead into her. Her name was Mother Finley. I know she's gone to be with the Lord now. Mother, the same woman who I gave the wood, and she was just so glad to see me. "Oh, you're here in Great Eastern and prayed. God, she said, she started speaking in tongues. I mean, loud. People, I said, you know, I love the Lord and everything, and I'm a young man, but here, oh, yeah. So I was acting like she was following me all over the place. Then I had a job at this place that gave shirts, and they would have rolls of material that they threw away. And I would take these rolls of material down to Camden, New Jersey, and give them to one of the mothers in Zion. And she would appreciate, and she would give them away to people that needed them and used them. But I was just giving. I didn't expect anything in return. But the Lord reminded me, sown those seeds way back then, I have received a harvest even today. Even today. So people of God, the word of God is right, is real. You need some money? You need some money? Sow it. Sow a seed out of your need. Sow it, and God will give you a harvest. I'm a living witness today. I am a living witness. I was laying in my bed not too long ago, and I was watching Inspiration Ministries, and Mike Murdoch, I love to hear him. And they were talking about sowing seed, giving, and the Lord moved upon me and said, you sow a seed. We have a need here. We're going into phase 2. Sow a seed. And I got up and I sowed a seed because I know that God, just as sure as I'm born, just as sure as I have on a gray suit and a pink shirt, that my wife has a better looking pink outfit on. I'm looking like the Queen of England. For sure, I know that we're going to move into phase 2. Real soon. People of God, what God's getting ready to do here, what happens is going to surprise you. It's going to leave your mouth drop wide open. God is going to send people in that are going to sow into this ministry. Oh yeah. You know, it was a pastor of a storefront church in Trenton, New Jersey, that won the Powerball, whatever the thing was.
Really?
That had 8 children.
Wow.
And she just divided the money with her children. But she was a pastor. And she said that God gave her the number. We're speaking tongues too. Why can't God give tongues?
Lord have mercy.
But God has his way of doing it. Amen. I'm not trying to promote. Going to the Powerball. But trust God. That's all he wants you to do. Just trust him. When you sow out of your need, you may have not anything left. But because you trusted him and you were obedient, God opened up the windows of heaven and poured out a harvest. He will take you out the spirit of poverty and put you into a spirit of abundance. You got to break that spirit of poverty. And once it's broken, you'll never have to worry about it again. Praise his name. Do you believe it? Do you really believe it? Hallelujah. Well, if you believe it, then I'm going to ask that you sow. Sow out of your need. Now there's some of you sitting here, you have your money all budgeted out. I'm going to pay for this phone with my cell phone bill. I'm going to pay for the lights. And that's all I got. And because if I give this down, my lights will get turned off and then I won't have no cell phone. And I won't be able to talk to nobody. But if you give it, God will fix it so that your lights will not turn on. And you'll have a cell phone till Jesus comes. Praise his name. So God wants to know, do you trust him? Do you believe him? If you trust him, sow it. If that widow woman, if she had kept it and ate her seed, she would just die, not be blessed. But because she trusted God, she lived, and she lived abundantly. Let us all stand.